I would now like to invite Dr. Astrid S. Tuminez, Regional Director, Corporate, External and Legal Affairs at Microsoft Southeast Asia, for a speech on Brave New World, Cybersecurity and Trusted Technology in the Age of Connectivity.
We live in exciting times. Those of you in the LKY School know that Asia is rising. But globally, we live in exciting times because we are witnessing a time of digital transformation. Technological megatrends such as social, mobile, big data, and cloud computing are all transforming the way we live, work, learn, and play. The research firm Gartner predicts that in the year 2020, there will be 20 billion devices connected to the internet, and this will support total services spending in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Because of digital transformation, many walls have come crumbling down. We can now do more, do better, and do faster at lower cost. The pace of innovation and invention is such that the World Economic Forum said last year that we are witnessing the fourth industrial revolution. And since it is the fourth, it's of course been preceded by three previous industrial revolutions. The first industrial revolution occurred in the 1700s. It harnessed water and steam to mechanize production and led to such inventions as steamboats and the railroad. And this revolution culminated in the invention of a machine that could move faster than a horse. And with this invention, commerce, communication, and the way people lived changed completely. The second industrial revolution happened in the 1800s, and this one was anchored in electricity and mass production. This, too, was accompanied by massive societal change. Let me illustrate this with two photographs. This first photograph was taken in 1905 at an intersection on Broadway in New York City near the Flatiron Building. In fact, I was standing precisely at this intersection just a month ago. In this photo, you see horses and trolleys, but not a single automobile. Also of note is that when this photograph was taken, 25% of American agricultural production was used to feed horses. Fast forward 20 years later, at exactly the same intersection, and you see trolleys and automobiles, but not a single horse. So the second industrial revolution not only allowed people to move faster than horses, it actually replaced horses, at least for some functions. The third industrial revolution really happened in the 1970s and was built around the microprocessor. Some of us in this room may remember owning one of these. I, for one, remember working in the former Soviet Union in the late 80s and early 90s, lugging around what was then a cutting-edge laptop that weighed exactly 8 kilograms or 20% of my body weight. So today, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Again, using the words of the World Economic Forum, the fourth industrial revolution is about the rise of cyber-physical systems that will generate new insights and create new capabilities for people and machines. In the physical world, this means things like driverless cars, robotics, new materials, and 3D printing. This is a blouse that I actually saw at the Metropolitan Museum about a month ago. In the biological world, this means personalized genomics-based medicine, genetic engineering, and new ways of thinking about agriculture and livestock. And in the digital world, we are seeing things like the Internet of Things, new technologies such as blockchain, and disruptive business models such as Airbnb and Uber, with which we are all familiar. Underlying all of the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution is one singular invention, and that is the cloud, or cloud computing. We are not talking about clouds in the sky, but we are talking about the giant data centers around the world that are putting unprecedented, massive computing power in the hands of practically anyone with a device and with connectivity. This is the brave new world that we live in. It is full of promise and wonder, but this world can only work if it is underpinned by one core critical principle, and that is trust. How do we ensure that the technologies that we are creating and using every day can be trusted? Let me repeat that question because it's very important. How do we ensure that the technologies we are creating and using every day can be trusted? In many ways, trust in our world is broken. You all remember this gentleman named Edward Snowden, who changed the world when he got on a plane with 4 laptops and fled from the United States, first to Hong Kong and then to Russia. We know that we live in a wonderful, brave new world that is full of promise, but also fraught with perils. The employees and executives of Sony Corporation know this when they opened their computers one morning and found a bloody skeleton instead of their friendly screen savers. Confidential information and communications were leaked, people lost their jobs, and Sony's business and reputation suffered as a result. The people in the United States government know this when the personal information of 21.5 million citizens were hacked from government computers. And users of an adultery website, I hope there are none in this room, called Ashley Madison, discovered that their privacy was a joke when their personal identities were made public. Some of them committed suicide. And just over a week ago, we saw more alarming headlines, including a story about the source code, the very source code of the National Security Agency of the United States that it uses for hacking being revealed on the internet. Closer to home, last June, the Central Bank of Bangladesh was hacked. The cybercriminals targeted $1 billion, but they got away with only 81 million. And the one reason that they were stopped was somebody misspelled the word foundation and wrote foundation, alerting banking officials to a potential fraud. So if you're going to be a cyber criminal, learn to spell. In July, last week of July, Vietnam Airlines and the 2 largest airports of Vietnam ground to a halt because hackers took over airport terminals, and instead of flight information, the only thing people could see were messages critical of Vietnam's claims in the South China Sea. Cyber attacks are becoming more diverse, more frequent, more sophisticated, and more organized. No one is exempt. The higher our connectivity, the higher also our vulnerability to the work of cyber criminals. What is going on? What's going on is the good, the bad, and the ugly. The internet, the cloud, connectivity, it works for hackers and defenders. It works for criminals and law enforcement. It works for legitimate entrepreneurs, and it works for thieves. Everywhere we see rising losses and disruption from cybercrime. McKinsey, for example, estimates that cyber attacks and the risks of cyber attack could lead to aggregate business losses of $3 trillion a year. What's at stake is huge for individuals, for organizations, for businesses, and for government. Businesses can lose their brands and their customers. Organizations lose their intellectual property. Individuals lose their privacy and their money, and governments can lose the trust of their citizens. So, we come to this question, what is to be done? Of course, there are many things we can do, but to adhere to the cardinal rule of the LKY School, I will make only 3 points. First, we, you and I, we must all become better and more sophisticated users of technology. What do you buy and where do you buy it? What do you use and how do you use it? Do our children and our employees know not to click on unfamiliar links and fraudulent websites? Do we know who has access to our ICT systems and what kind of access do they have? The more sophisticated we become as consumers of technology, the more we can prevent malware, which is one of the most important facilitators of cybercrime. In 2014, the National University of Singapore conducted a study where researchers purchased 203 brand new computers in 11 countries, and they found that because of pirated software, there was a 61% malware infection rate in these computers. This is like buying a house where all the doors and windows have broken locks. Second, governments must do more to modernize laws that govern the borderless internet. And what has to be done is to have laws that spur innovation on one hand, while also protecting timeless values such as security and privacy on the other hand. My own company, Microsoft, has sued the US government because we believe that it did not have the right to unlimited access to people's data that resided outside of the borders of the US. We need legal assistance treaties or other legal arrangements and agreements to govern this new world of information. The critical questions really are these. Who owns your data? Who owns my data? Who has control of our data? And who can access our data? Third, we need more public-private collaboration to defend against and to disrupt the work of cyber criminals. Part of the work that my team does in Asia involves the Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit, whose mandate is to fight malware and also protect vulnerable populations. Let me illustrate the kind of collaboration that I have in mind. In 2015, there was a pernicious malware botnet called Ramnet that was causing hundreds of millions of customer losses in the banking industry. For those of you who don't know, a botnet is simply an army of zombie computers, they could be yours and mine, usually infected with malware, and then used by cyber criminals to perpetrate crime. Microsoft's telemetry showed over 3 million devices infected with this malware, and the infection was all over the world. However, we also noticed that the highest activity was in the United Kingdom and in India and Indonesia. In fact, 27% of the infection was in India and 17% in Indonesia. And this was partly explained by the fact that there was a high number of British financial institution customers in these countries. In February 2015, through a coordinated effort involving the Microsoft Cybercrime War Room in our Digital Crimes Unit, Europol's C3 War Room in The Hague, and law enforcement in 4 countries, we were able to seize simultaneously all the C2 servers that were involved in this big, gigantic cyber criminal act. And in parallel, Microsoft took over 300 million domains that had been infected. This is a demonstration of what was happening when the malware was being taken down. So what happened after Microsoft had control of these infected domains was it redirected them to a sinkhole at our headquarters. And once the domains are in the sinkhole, what essentially happened was that the contact, the link between the criminal command and control system and the infected devices were severed. So this is the type of collaboration that has to happen as governments get more educated and as private sector organizations do their own share to fight the work that cyber criminals are perpetrating. So let me conclude by saying that again, we live in a very exciting world. Parag Khanna showed you just how exciting it is. But this world has a very dark side in cybercrime. In order to fulfill the promise of our new technologies and the promise of the 4th Industrial Revolution, individuals, organizations, and governments must work harder and work together to ensure that we really have the technology that we can trust. Thank you very much.